Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome to Battlefield 6 Season 1 with the brand new Battle Royale, Redsec. I know there's going to be a lot of new people here trying to get on the game, and I want to make sure you guys' settings are fully dialed in. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to do me a favor. Drop a like on it. Make sure you subscribe, those notifications turned on so you don't miss out on anything Battlefield 6 and Redsec. Okay, so to get in here and just to kind of give you guys a bit of a rundown, there's a lot of like duplicate settings to the point where, like, if you go into the gameplay tab, you scroll down in here to like your infantry, all these different types of settings, you will be able to customize that in a different tab. And so we're just not really going to go through some of these. I'm just going to make sure you guys are dialed in with the other ones. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that if you're playing on controller, your settings will be dialed in, and then we'll go into some of the different graphics settings, HUD settings, stuff like that. Will kind of encompass everything. So let's get in here. I play controller on PC. I'm just gonna use my mouse to go and show you guys some of the stuff since it is a bit easier. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get into the control settings here. I know this tab is a little bit confusing, so just kind of follow along with me. First thing, your infantry aim sensitivity. Mine is currently at a 55. I was on about a 45. Felt like I was looking around a little bit too slow, so I bumped it up to a 55. That feels quite nice. I'd recommend being around this range, 50, 45. Kind of see how that works for you. Battlefield's not a game where you have to really flick around, zoom around. I mean, obviously, if you're on keyboard and mouse, that's a bit of a different thing, right? Because you're using your mouse bit on controller. You really don't have to flick around that much. And keep in mind that when this little box is here, that means I've altered the setting. Next up, my field of view is going to be at 120. I highly believe in playing on a maximum field of view. That's something I personally like. But if you're, let's say, on a console, playing on your couch and there's a TV farther away from you, maybe that's not that great. But if you're playing at a gaming setup, then I recommend playing on a larger field of view. It helps with the general weapon recoil because it looks visually a lot less when you're a little bit more zoomed out. I like it. I think it helps you see more around you. So that is my personal preference. Obviously, I didn't change the vertical aim ratio here because, I mean, it doesn't have that box spot. I don't believe in checking that. Uniform infantry aiming, you want this on, though there will be a setting, which I'm not sure if they've entirely fixed in the update, but we will come back and address this here in just a second because there will be something we have to turn it off just for a second for. My zoom sensitivity coefficient, I have this at a 0. I don't really think I need to have a different like value right here. I just want this to be kind of like true value and not mess with it. It says it enables and adjusts sensitivity of uniform infantry aim zoom. The greater the value, the higher the sensitivity while zoomed. So that means that if, like, let's say I flick this up to 287, that means when I zoom in, I'm gonna be literally just, my aim's gonna be going everywhere. So we want this to be as like true to our sensitivity as possible, so I leave that at 0. Of course, your infantry aim assist is going to be at 100. Infantry aim assist slowdown, keep that at 100. Don't ever turn that stuff down. We really like that. Infantry aim input curve. I'm glad they actually added, what this actually is right here, because before people were just scrolling through these and being like, I don't know what the hell any of this stuff does. And to be honest, if you didn't play some of the other games, like for instance, if you go to Bad Company 2, that will make you feel like, that's the one literally right above my face cam right there. That'll make you feel very sluggish, very, very slow. It feels like Bad Company 2 from back in the day. But if you go to Battlefield 3, which I personally like the feeling of more, I mean, Bad Company 2 is my favorite game of all time, but for an FPS game, I want, more responsiveness, and this is just a bit better. So I like it. I think it's a nice little gradual curve. You could also go over here to Battlefield 1 and 4. Both those are going to be great, but I like Battlefield 3 as more of a personal preference. Now for my stick input acceleration presets, I like to be on Battlefield 4, 3, and Bad Company. I have this at a 20. I just wanted it to be give me a little bit of acceleration, and that is really about it. I don't need anything more than that. That is what feels good to me. Down here in my infantry sprint, I have this, of course, on toggle, which is what is just left on by default. You should definitely have that. You don't want it to be on hold ever. Double tap forward to sprint. I just have this on sprint. You can have it on auto sprint. For me, it feels fine. And sometimes I think it feels a little bit wonky, at least pre-update on auto sprint. So I just have it on sprint and I don't really mind. Of course, I use my left stick. You guys can kind of custom button map some stuff, and I'll go through that briefly, but we're just gonna go through here. Of course, slide is gonna be on my right stick. I like to plan more of that like tactical Call of Duty style layout where I slide in my stick. My melee is my like my circle, or for me it is a B button since I'm on an Xbox controller technically with the scuff and vision. Moving on down here though, just to give you guys some of these other settings. My zoom is of course gonna be my LB since that's my top bumper. My steady scope is going to be that right stick, so that way I can just hold in what I'm aiming. That is actually very nice. And then my infantry zoom aim sensitivity is going to be at a 70. And then you can see this down here, zoom transition sensitivity smoothing. This is off. yours by default will be on. So let's show you guys how to change that. So we're gonna go up in here and we're gonna go all the way back to uniform infantry aiming, turn that off. Then you can go back down here and then you can toggle this from on to off. So then you're gonna go back up in here and turn this on, so then it grays it back out. But what this does is it takes your aim from, let's say if you think about like a gradual ramp up to your ADS like sensitivity. We don't want that. If you want to be like as accurate as possible, you want that immediate slowdown. If I'm hitting my aim button, I want that to immediately kick in where I get my ADS sensitivity. That keeps it consistent and it feels very, very snappy and quick. So I'd recommend to turn that off. We don't need that gradual ramp up. That'll mess you up more times than not. And it's just not fun. Like you can overcorrect so easily by having maybe your aim assist start to slowly ramp up. We don't want to do that. And the rest of the stuff down here, I have the infantry aim on, like, you know, the uniform. But if you want to kind of custom this, you can go down in here and you can change this. So maybe you get a little bit less of your sensitivity down at these higher zoom optics versus than you would at these lower zoom optics. To me, that feels very reasonable because, you know, if you go down here to a 10 times, obviously you don't want it to have the same amount of ability to go back and forth as you would at a 1 times. That it just doesn't make sense. A red dot versus a 10 times sniper scope. They're a little bit different. Just going a little bit right below here in this other tab, I want you guys to go for your interact and reload behavior. So if you're playing this, I would say that you can largely for multiplayer play on tap to reload, hold to interact. But if you're going to be playing Redsec, which is what this kind of video is guided towards, I'd recommend going tap to interact and reload hold. That's just because it's going to allow you to pick stuff up off the ground very, very quickly. Let's say you drop in. Much like any other battle royale, it's pretty pertinent, you know, pretty crucial to pick up things very fast. So do that. But if you're playing, of course, multiplayer, tap to reload is perfectly fine. But of course, for Redsec, you want to be on interact, tap, reload, hold. And then the rest of the settings down in here below that, you don't have to mess with. These are all going to be default. So now we can back out to the other menu. I'm not going to get super in depth with my like custom mapping. I'll just briefly go through it since I don't have anything crazy set in here. About the craziest thing I have is maybe like some different sprint stuff. I mean, I really don't got a whole lot. I mean, like you can see like my fire and my zoom, I changed that from the bottom to the top bumpers, you know, instead of the bottom triggers, top bumpers. And I really haven't changed a whole lot. It is nice, like let's say steady scope, I changed that, so that's a little bit easier. But that's really about it. You don't have to like go in here and mess with a whole lot. Leave pretty much majority of things as default, like my crouch is toggle. That's going to be that right stick that allows me to have that more of that tactical feel, but leave largely everything else default. You don't have to mess with it. Okay, so now that we're back at this menu, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way down to the very bottom. And not to be confused, like, so the joystick, a lot of people were, you know, jumping in here and being, oh, dead zone, stuff like that. It's like, no, that is literally for like your vehicles and stuff like that. And like joystick, I think is literally for the people that have an actual joystick. That is not to be confused with the joysticks on your controller, which can be down here underneath other and your controller tuning. I wish they would have moved that up in the update, but it's still right there. So right here, it doesn't matter what you got on. I have lower rumble packs in this controller, and for me to have some sort of haptic feedback feels normal, feels regular. So I have it on. It doesn't mess up your aim. Don't let people tell you that. Unless you have like the most ridiculous overkill rumble packs of all time, I don't think it's going to mess you up. Your controller left stick, so I play on a 0-0. That is my preference. I'd recommend being on as low of a dead zone as possible. That allows you to react faster. Think about it as in like you have the circumference of your stick, right? And if you're in the middle, you have like that area where if you have a bigger dead zone, it expands. And that means that that range of motion in the center of your stick, there is essentially going to be no movement registered in game. So nothing's going to happen in game. Even though you're moving your stick, nothing's going to happen. So you want that as low as possible, so that way movements and everything kick in. It is a reactionary game, so you have to react, you know, decently fast, right? So I prefer to be on a 0. I've gotten used to it. I'd recommend just dialing it back ever so slightly. Like let's say you're used to a 10 or something like that. Then you dial it back to like a 7, then you go down to like a 5 or something like that, and you just kind of gradually move it down. You have stick drift, that's going to make a difference, but that is, I think, worth it. Also, this is your left stick, so it's not going to be super crazy if you just move very easily. Your max input threshold, though, I have this at a 60 just because I'm only sprinting, moving, stuff like that. I don't need this to be the full circumference, the full area of the stick for me to have my max movement kick in. I'd rather only hit 60% of my stick, you know, going forward, backward, whatever, for that full movement to kick in. That makes sense to me. But on the flip side, down here on your right stick, what you're aiming with, of course, I still plan a 0-0, but my max input threshold is going to be at 100 because I don't want to lose any area off my stick that I'm aiming with. That's how you make those fine adjustments. And if you lower that, you're going to be in a serious world of hurt where you're going to start missing shots. It's just not going to be fun. So for peak accuracy, you want this at 100. And of course, down here, for any guys that are wondering this stuff, because my controller has mouse click triggers, I just have a dead zone, because if I don't have a dead zone, they might auto click in, and I don't want that to happen. So I just have that. Otherwise, yours should be at a 0. Mine's just at a 10. It doesn't affect me. It just keeps it from auto clicking in. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the graphics tab and show you guys a bunch of stuff in here. That way you can be taken care of. I'm not going to show a lot of like crazy PC settings. I'll show you guys some of my graphics settings. I play in like a PC. I have like a 3080 Ti. It's nothing crazy overkill. Like, just go through here and look and see if some of the stuff is going to like have a large effect on you or not. Like I'd recommend playing in, generally speaking, low settings, but go through here. If it says it's going to be, you know, low on your overall, you know, GPU, CPU, increase if it doesn't mess with your memory and stuff like that. Remember, close out tabs when you're not using them, like especially on like Google Chrome, stuff like that. But overall, low settings is largely going to be better. It gets you more frames. Frames are just better than having 4K graphics. You rather play on like 200 FPS at 1440 than like, you know, 100 FPS at, you know, 4K. It just, you know, your gaming experience is going to be infinitely better with having more frames. Getting back in here to the regular graphics tab, of course, we just came out from the quality settings here. That'll be custom just because I've adjusted everything. World brightness, I leave this at a 50. What's really nice is they adjusted everything from going inside of buildings to outside, so you don't really have to mess with this anymore to not feel like you're getting totally screwed or blinded by the sun, and you're able to look out of buildings. Really nice. Sharpness, I believe in having this scaled up to about an 80. It just makes things in game look obviously sharper, so I like that. We'll go into the advanced tab here real quick just to kind of show you guys what I got. My fixed resolution scale is just going to be sitting at 100. NVIDIA Reflex low latency. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, recommend having this enabled. And then, of course, my performance overlay is just on simple, just so I can see some of this crap up in the corner and see, you know, if there's anything going wrong. But I don't recommend ever having this frame generation stuff on. That will basically give you input lag, like just because it's trying to generate frames. So don't have that on. It's never good for an FPS game. Maybe for campaign, stuff like that, but for multiplayer, don't do that. Now back out here in your graphics tab, of course, we're gonna be at 120 field of view. Third person field of view on, like, of course, your vehicles can be at 83. That just makes sense to me. Weapon field of view should be on wide. That'll make your weapon appear smaller on your screen. You don't need your weapon to take up more space on your screen, so this will just help you a little bit. Weapon motion blur, keep that at 0. World motion blur, keep it at 0. If you want to go for that like real cinematic effect and you don't care about your game just looking good and be able to see stuff on your screen, by all means, go for motion blur. But it looks basically cool in trailers, and then it sucks in game. So that's just my take on that, my 2 cents. Camera shake amount, also you want this to be at 50. That is something we don't want any more of our cameras shaking on screen. Like, if you're trying to go full cinematic experience, by all means, 100, you know, dial that way up. But I want to be able to see what's going on in game, so I have this at a 50. Reduce sprint camera bobbing, that's going to be on, so that way I can keep my camera very steady. Chromatic aberration, keep that off. Vignette, keep that off. And same with film grain, we don't want any of that crap. It's just extra stuff on our screen that makes seeing things more difficult. We just don't want that. Last thing down here, vertical sync, turn that off. We do not want VSync. That is going to screw you. And this is also just kind of what I plan, playing 1440p, 165 hertz monitor. Turn VSync off. You'll thank me later. All right, so now hopping into the HUD tab right over here. We were just in the graphics tab. Now we're going to be in the HUD tab. Of course, you want your HUD on. That shows you what's going on screen. We're not playing this hardcore stuff where we don't see anything. So that's definitely good to be able to have your HUD on. Infantry HUD motion and vehicle HUD motion. For those guys that don't understand what this is, imagine you're, like, let's say riding around a vehicle, you get hit by an RPG, and of course your screen starts to shake. Well, if you have vehicle HUD motion on, that means everything in your corners, like all your mini map, your gun ammo counts, whatever is down there is going to start shaking around as well. So this just keeps it planted on your screen. Same like you get hit with grenades, getting suppressed. We don't want this to start messing up, and like we don't want that. Like, we just want it to be stable, keep it on our screen. We're trying to make it sure that we can see what's happening in game. So this is another piece to that puzzle. making sure that it's just easy to be able to see what's going on. So infantry HUD motion, vehicle HUD motion, keep it off. Keep this HUD padding at like a 0. I don't think you need to move this in at all. The minimap and all this other crap is like already pretty big. We don't need to like bring it in and make it so it's harder to see what's going on screen. Down here, I'll show you guys advanced HUD and icon settings. Big map opacity, I have this at 85. Not really a big thing, like to be able to have that. It just is like your big map when you bring it up. Like it's really nothing crazy. And then down here, your objective icons, I think this is actually pretty good to have. Objective icon opacity at an 80, so I'd recommend changing that down. Objective icon opacity when you're zoomed, so that means like when you're ADS, the opacity of them goes down to 40, and then occluded means like when you're basically not looking at them, essentially, they get down to a 20. That helps remove some of the overall clutter on your screen from like, when we're zooming in or looking around, we don't need all these crazy icons and stuff here. To me, that doesn't make sense. So just go ahead and have those settings on right there. And honestly, that's really essentially going to be about it. Now back in here to the HUD tab, we're just going to go on down. Minimap size is going to be on large. I just like to be able to see what's going on, so I have that on large. Haven't messed with any of this other stuff here, so I'm just going to kind of briefly go through it. For the crosshair opacity, I like having it at like 100. Obviously, so you can see that. Intensity can be at 85. I haven't changed the crosshair color. I like just leaving it at the standard white. But the crosshair thickness, I have this at the thickest it can get. I like it thick, so pause. But I like the crosshair to be thick. So we're gonna have that on right there. That just allows it to stand out a little bit more from all the chaos that's happening on screen. I think it helps it stand out a little bit in infantry crosshair projection. Basically, this just kind of keeps it static. So I have this off. Right below that, in your hit indicator, I know there's a lot of settings to mess with in this game. I have this at 70, so I don't need it to be like absolutely wicked. And then I have changed a couple of different things like the kill color. This is going to be just a brighter version of orange. People ask me, how are your icons so vibrant? It's because you go in here and like you can click onto it and see that orange. Now I just have to go through and find that orange again. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to choose a very vibrant orange, or I'll probably go back and maybe adjust it a little bit. But overall, that is kind of how you do that, and that's how you make your colors look better, is because there'll be a more dull version of the color that's there. So I didn't change any of this. I just made it more vibrant, you know, than what it already was. So that's it. And that's a very nice little simple tip and trick to make your icons stand out, or just to make things, you know, appear more vibrant in game. But otherwise, down here, I haven't changed any of this other stuff. I do have chat visibility on hide because I don't need to see absolutely everybody talking up a storm. Largely, they're just talking a bunch of BS, so it doesn't matter. Getting in here to the accessibility tab, nothing in here that I have to exactly explain. My master volume's at a 50 because I'm sitting here at the main menu. When I'm playing in game, I'll have that cranked up to 100, and that's really about it. Haven't messed with any of this stuff, of course, since there's no box by it. But going on down here, something that'll be very useful is going in here to your color profiles. So going to your color profiles, you can see the different things here to my right side, which are going to be like your color presets. All I've done is gone through every single one of these and chosen the more vibrant version of what was already there. So highly recommend you guys take just a second, kind of set it, forget it, go do that. You can change it to be something you want personally. You can change it if you have a colorblind setting, whatever, go for that and then change it accordingly. But I like having more vibrant icons. It just makes things stand out. I get a lot of comments every time I stream, people being like, yo, Chuck, how's your icons, everything so vibrant in game? Just because of this. I don't really even have any color correction on my recordings. It's just because of this. So go through there, adjust these, and you can customize them if you want. I haven't changed any of these from the base color, just made it a more saturated color version of what was there. Back out here, right underneath the color profiles, you want to go to your camera effects. So we're going to hit edit. And then, of course, this is where you have your motion blur, HUD motion, stuff like that. This is just kind of all stuff we've already adjusted, but just make sure it's already been adjusted right there. And make sure your settings have saved. Going on down through the rest of this stuff, we can look at, you know, the rest of this. It's all stuff we've already kind of done. So that's why I said there's some like duplicate menus and it'll kind of confuse you. But overall, this is just the random accessibility tab. We've already gone through basically everything. One of the last things I'll show you guys is that in here in the audio, something I found to be really nice is my audio mix is configured to war tapes. That sounds incredible to me. I really like the mix of that. And it makes it very easy to be able to hear footsteps, everything going on around you. It just kind of really immerses you in the game. So I like war tapes. Give it a try, see how it sounds. To me, that sounds incredibly good, especially being with a headset. Even if you're coming through a TV I imagine War Tapes is going to sound fantastic, but just try everything out. All right, well, that is everything I know to show you guys for settings. With everything, I try to say it is a suggestion, especially the aim assist. That is going to be a little bit more personal preference. I just like to give you a baseline to go off of so you can figure it out and dial it in from there for your own personal liking. Everyone's different, but all the rest of the HUD settings, stuff like that, that's kind of universal for everybody being good. So that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, those notifications turned on, check out this other video on screen. I'll see y'all next time.